when front porches were where the stories were told, and you knew every face on every stroll. Rode my bike through puddles down Church Street, dust on my shoes, but freedom on my feet. Summers at the lake, winter still warm. A small town heartbeat kept my soul formed. 1,000 memories carved in the sand. Man, I was lucky to grow up in DeLand. Lucky to wake up where the oak trees grow, where Woodland Boulevard runs slow, where football lights lit Friday nights, Mama's porch was full of light. Looking learn what a handshake means, and to chase big dreams from small town scenes. I carry it with me wherever I stand. Yeah, I was lucky to grow up in DeLand. Mr. Johnson's store had the best cold Coke, and the school bell rang like a friendly joke. George Marks taught me more than books, like how to stand tall and get second looks. We weren't rich, but we had it all. Backyard games and that fire hall ball. It ain't fancy, but it sure is great. And I thank God I grew up in land. Lucky to dance on the Spanish moss, to know what it means to win and loss, to walk through town and feel that pride, like the spirit of old souls by my side. Lucky to know that home ain't a place, it's a feeling you carry in every space. It shaped my heart and steady hand. Yeah, I was lucky to grow up in DeLand. Some left, some stayed, some just drifted through, but DeLand left a mark like only it can do. It ain't just where I'm from, it's who I am. Forever proud, forever DeLand. Lucky to wake up where the wild things sing, where the church bells chime, the front door swing, where time moves slow and hearts beat strong. You feel like you truly belong. Lucky to grow up, to fall on the land, in that little town with the biggest stand. Yeah, I was lucky, so damn lucky, so damn lucky to grow up in DeLand. Yeah, I still hear the crickets and the train tracks roll. DeLand raised me deep in my soul.
Oh, I come from Alabama with my banjo on my knee, and I'm going to Louisiana, my true love for to see. Oh, Susanna, now don't you cry for me, for I come from Alabama with my banjo on my knee. Oh, it rained all night the day I left, the weather was so dry, the sun so hot I froze to death. Susanna, don't you cry. Oh, Susanna, now don't you cry for me, for I come from Alabama with my banjo on my knee. I had a dream the other night when everything was still. I thought I saw Susanna coming down the hill. Oh, Susanna, now don't you cry for me, for I come from Alabama with my banjo on my knee. A buckwheat cake was in her mouth, a tear was in her eye. I said I come from Dixieland, Susanna, don't you cry. Oh, Susanna, now don't you cry for me, for I come from Alabama with my banjo on my knee. I've been working on the railroad all the livelong day. I've been working on the railroad just to pass the time away. Can't you hear the whistle blowing? Rise up so early in the morn. Can't you hear the captain shouting? Dinah, blow your horn. Dinah, won't you blow? Dinah, won't you blow? Dinah, won't you blow your horn? Dinah, won't you blow? Dinah, won't you blow? Dinah, won't you blow your horn? Someone's in the kitchen with Dinah. Someone's in the kitchen, I know. Someone's in the kitchen with Dinah, strumming on the old banjo. Fee-fi, fiddly-I-o, fee-fi, fiddly-I-o, fee-fi, fiddly-I-o, strumming on the old banjo.
She'll be coming around the mountain when she comes. She'll be coming around the mountain when she comes. She'll be coming around the mountain. She'll be coming around the mountain. She'll be coming around the mountain when she comes. She'll be driving 6 white horses when she comes. She'll be driving 6 white horses when she comes. She'll be driving 6 white horses. She'll be driving 6 white horses. She'll be driving 6 white horses when she comes. Oh, we'll all go out to meet her when she comes. Oh, we'll all go out to meet her when she comes. Oh, we'll all go out to meet her. Oh, we'll all go out to meet her. Oh, we'll all go out to meet her when she comes. Oh, we'll all have chicken and dumplings when she comes. Oh, we'll all have chicken and dumplings when she comes. Oh, we'll all have chicken and dumplings. Oh, we'll all have chicken and dumplings. Oh, we'll all have chicken and dumplings when she comes. We'll be singing hallelujah when she comes. We'll be singing hallelujah when she comes. We'll be singing hallelujah.
Michael rowed the boat ashore. Hallelujah. Michael rowed the boat ashore. Hallelujah. Brother lend a helping hand. Hallelujah. Brother lend a helping hand. Hallelujah. Children sing a sailor song. Hallelujah. Children call the boat back home. Hallelujah. Sister, help to trim the sail. Hallelujah. Sister, help to trim the sail. Hallelujah. Michael hauled the boat ashore. Hallelujah. Michael stayed forevermore. Hallelujah. In a cavern, in a canyon, excavating for a mine, lived a miner, 49er, and his daughter, Clementine. Oh my darling, oh my darling, oh my darling Clementine, you are lost and gone forever, dreadful sorry Clementine. Like she wasn't like a fairy, and her shoes were number 9. Herring boxes without topses, sandals were for Clementine. Oh my darling, oh my darling, oh my darling Clementine, you are lost and gone forever, dreadful sorry Clementine. Drove she ducklings to the water every morning just at 9. Stubbed her toe against a splinter, fell into the foaming brine. Oh my darling, oh my darling, oh my darling Clementine, you are lost and gone forever, dreadful sorry Clementine. Ruby lips above the water, blowing bubbles soft and fine. But alas, I was no swimmer, so I lost my Clementine. Oh my darling, oh my darling, oh my darling Clementine, you are lost and gone forever, dreadful sorry Clementine. How I missed her, how I missed her, how I missed my Clementine, until I kissed her little sister and forgot my Clementine. Oh my darling, oh my darling, oh my darling Clementine, on forever. Dreadful, sorry Clementine.
On top of Old Smoky, all covered with snow, I lost my true lover. Come a courting too slow, for courting's a pleasure and parting is grief. A false-hearted lover is worse than a thief. For a thief he will rob you and take what you have, but a false-hearted lover will send you to your grave. She'll hug you and kiss you and tell you more lies than cross ties on a railroad or stars in the skies. On top of Old Smoky, all covered with snow, I lost my true lover. Come a courting too slow.
Now, there were about a bunch of people in DeLand that went to work for a place out on Lake Beresford called the Beresford Boat Works. And they helped in the making of tugboats for the United States Army. Now, I always thought of a tugboat as just something that pushed a barge up and down the Mississippi River. But no, these boats were very special. These boats were used by the United States Army in critical ways for the war effort. They salvaged, they towed, they rescued, they patrolled, and when necessary, they fought. And we've got the man here tonight who was the manager of the boat works to tell you all about it. I would like to bring out Mr. B.D. Olson. Mr. Olson.
Good evening. I'm B.D. Olson. Welcome to the Beresford Boat Works. Today is VJ Day. Finally, the war's over. That's not all I'm here to talk to you about tonight. I'm happy as hell, just like everyone else, that this damn war is finally over. But I also know that the Army will soon cancel its contract with the American Manufacturing Corp Marine Division. But I'm here to let you know I plan to open a new company that will build boats and other products right here on Lake Beresford. I think I'll call it the Olson Corporation just to keep it simple. So a company founded during the war will continue on. And that's a good thing for the DeLand area. Now the other things I'd like to explain to you are probably still classified by the Army. Can you keep a secret? Can I trust you? Okay. All right. Well, here's how it started. Just after Pearl Harbor, we began talking about building tugboats on Lake Beresford. And the AMC people wanted to have a place near Orlando to build inexpensive steel-hulled boats. And Lake Beresford was an ideal candidate because of the good workforce in DeLand. I agreed to be the operations manager because I had a lot of experience with steel-hulled boats, and I had a marine operation in Jacksonville. There was just one problem. Lake Beresford's shallow, even in the main channel. So the diesel engines would need to be mounted on the boats after they made the trip to Jacksonville. And that was okay with me because it was easy to float them down the river. The only thing we had to do is turn the boat sideways in Lake Beresford because of the shallow water. Now there's nothing wrong with a steel-hulled boat. They'll be around for probably 100 years, long after wooden boats will be gone. But our tugs, with their all-steel construction, top-heavy superstructure, combined with a lack of watertight door seals and a fuel tank with minimal baffles to keep the fuel from sloshing from side to side as the boats tip, made them impractical for open water use. In fact, our tugs needed to stay on calm water, and that's what we thought was going to happen to them when we were building them. They'd stay in coastal and U.S. harbors and be towing barges up and down the coast and the intercoastal waterway, and that's it, nothing else. And that's what happened with some of them, but not all of them. Now this is the part no one knows. Over half of our tugs were sent to Europe to fight the Nazis and Uncle Adolf. That's right. Some of them even helped out at D-Day. I have a friend, an inside contact with the office that handles ST assignments, and he told me the ST479 hit a mine and exploded about 2 weeks after the Normandy invasion. Now he hasn't gotten explanations on everything, but he tells me on the QT that at least 4 of our tugs that were sent over, out of the 15 or so, were lost. And he's trying to get more information, but there doesn't seem to be anything but a few brief reports. My friend has to be careful. The scuttlebutt is that the number of ST tugs lost because of the design issues and emergency wartime use has been underreported because of low morale. I imagine that the records will probably be lost down the road and nobody will be able to prove anything. Just a few months ago, I was talking to an ST captain who told me he made a trip from New Orleans to Hawaii with an ST without even the use of a chronometer. Now, he said he barely survived that trip. He also told me he'd heard many rumors about these all-steel tugs capsizing. I believe he was the captain of the ST479 Tiger. I also heard a story about a convoy of small tugs being towed across the Atlantic by larger tugs. They hit a patch of rough weather this past October, and a number of those tugs were lost. So after that fiasco, they started shipping the tugs back across on Liberty ships and Victory ships. I imagine down the road somebody's going to complain about these all-steel tugs capsizing. And I want you to know that our tugs, we built every one just the way the U.S. Army specified. I mean, just the way they specified. But what does the Army know about building boats anyway? We received last year the E Award, which is given to Army and Navy contractors for speedy and quality production. Only 5% of federal contractors receive that award. Well, I hope you can remember some of this tug history, but just be sure to keep it secret for a little while, okay? Thank you.
Now we know the truth, that our tugboats were in the thick of it, fighting Nazi Germany. Isn't that nice? Of the 16 that were sent over to Europe, we know of 4 that were sunk, and perhaps overboard, because frankly the records are just a mess. But they were very instrumental in helping to build the mulberries for the invasion of Normandy. You know what the mulberries are? Anybody know what a mulberry is? Yep. I'm not talking about the thing you eat off a bush. Okay. No, okay. Mulberries are those like floating jetties or docks that were absolutely critical for the invasion of Normandy, for D-Day. And so that they can offload the troops and all the equipment. And if you go over there today, you'll still see some of them out in the water. I think there's 4 off of the beach of Omaha. Well, we believe that there are now 6 of the warboats, and they were known as the DeLand warboats, still in existence around the world. They're pretty old, so I think they must have been very well built to still be afloat.
We're honoring the tugboats that were built here in DeLand in World War II. Most people don't realize that on Lake Beersford, we built 29 all-steel tugboats, and they're pretty good-sized boats for use in the harbors. And until recently, everyone really didn't know where they went. And I started doing research after I retired. I found a builder's plaque that was actually on one of the boats and wondered where that boat had gone, and then started doing research on individual boats and found that 16 of them actually went to Germany and were involved in things like D-Day. This particular boat, ST344, was without a doubt 100% certain at D-Day on D-Day +1, and they were building the mulberries, the docks off of the coast of Omaha. They were crucial to our success there. It's one thing to send the men in, but if you had to keep bringing in troops and supplies and everything, or you weren't gonna win the battle. And sadly, 6 weeks later, it blew up, hit a mine off the coast of Cherbourg, France, and exploded. And while I'm doing internet research, what do I find? A photograph of the one young man that was killed on that boat. He's the only one that we know of by photograph that was actually killed on that boat. We don't know what happened to the rest of the crew. We assume most of them were killed.
This program is brought to you in part by the Paul B. Hunter and Constance D. Hunter Charitable Foundation, Incorporated, a proud partner of WUCF-TV and the Central Florida community.
Hello everyone, welcome to this episode of Central Florida Road Trip. I'm Dr. Phil Hoffman. This week we're making a stop in the city of DeLand, the county seat of Volusia County, and a place with a world-class education, a thriving arts scene, and thrills to last a lifetime. Like many cities in Central Florida, DeLand was originally known by another name.
Prior to Henry DeLand's presence here, it was known as Persimmon Hollow. Down at what is now the corner of New York Avenue and Florida, there was a large depression in the ground, what we in the South would call a hollow. It was about 100 feet by 100 feet. And so it retained rainwater when it rained. Because there was water there, vegetation like persimmon plants grew all around it. So as a point of reference, this area was referred to as Persimmon Hollow, after that hollow in the ground that collected water over the years.
But things were about to change for the town of Persimmon Hollow.
1876 was quite a year. It was the centennial birthday of the United States. Up in Fairport, New York, Henry DeLand was a 40-year-old baking soda manufacturer, very wealthy, very successful. Probably never been on a vacation in his life, but this was the year.
At the behest of his brother-in-law, DeLand made his way to the outskirts of Persimmon Hollow.
And Mr. DeLand was not real happy about it. He kept saying, let's turn back, I don't want to see this. As they hit the DeLand Orange City Ridge, which is a high and dry ridge, Mr. DeLand's interest peaked. He said it reminded him of New York, and he said he could see far in the distance through the trees. He was really pretty excited about it.
That day, he bought 159.1 acres for $1,000 and set his sights on the future.
He sees great possibility for agriculture, for industry, and for tourism in this area. He thinks it's beautiful.
He goes back to New York, and pretty soon he's placing ads in the New York Times and other northern newspapers. One said, Persimmon Hollow, 25 miles from the Atlantic Ocean, is constantly favored by a cool ocean sea breeze. That's stretching it just a little bit. About 24 miles, I would say. A couple of things happened that really set the tone for the development of DeLand. One, he offered to donate land for a school, which later becomes DeLand Academy and later Stetson University. He also donates a 60-foot wide, 1 mile long Main Street, which will run through the center of this town. It'll be called Woodland Boulevard.
And because of that, the citizens of Persimmon Hollow ultimately voted unanimously to rename the area DeLand after Henry DeLand and the many things he brought to this area.
The name was forever changed to DeLand, and Mr. DeLand continued to sell his property with a unique guarantee.
All the people he sold land to, which was quite a few, he guaranteed satisfaction. If you were not successful, he would give you your money back. What other town did something like that? None that I know of.
But that guarantee would prove costly as a great freeze fell over Florida in 1895.
Well, February dropped to 16 degrees and stayed there for hours. 95% of all the citrus in the state of Florida was wiped out. Not just the fruit, the trees. Dig them up, throw them in a pile and burn them. One settler described when he came out the next day, he described it as, he sounded like a firing range. It was like crack, pow, pop, pop, crack. It was those trees bursting. There were a lot of dissatisfied people after that freeze. It takes, 7, 8 years to get citrus producing. So we had quite a few people come to him and say, well, I'm sorry, but I need my money back. So he's facing a choice. I think he could have worked it, he could have wiggled his way out of it. He could have said, hey, act of nature, not my fault. Or he could have said, I'm bankrupt, I have no money, which was true. So he has a choice to make. He's 60 years old. He goes back to Fairport, starts a new baking soda company, and within a few years, he paid all the creditors off. It really kind of makes you feel good to know our founding father actually went a step above what he had to do to hold his values.
The Great Freeze was not the only early catastrophe. A much warmer disaster had already shaped DeLand's past.
September 27th of 1886, the residents of DeLand woke up to a great fire, and citizens started coming out and watching helplessly as most of their town burned to the ground. It started, we think, in Wilcox Saloon, and possibly with a cigar that was left on sawdust, and quickly spread not only from Wilcox Saloon but to the three-story building to the south.
Fortunately, there were no fatalities, but 22 buildings and 43 businesses were wiped out on that fateful night.
In the morning, when everybody was standing around, they were totally amazed at how much devastation there was. The citizens and the townspeople passed two ordinances. One was that there'd be no more wood structures in downtown DeLand. It would have to be brick. And the second was no more saloons. The Great Fire of 1886 was a milestone in DeLand's history. It set the table for creating a new community that was more resilient, still evident today in DeLand, and that's why we enjoy living here.
The post-fire ordinance banning wood structures is part of what today gives downtown DeLand its charm. And if you're looking for a drink, don't worry, the anti-saloon ordinance was repealed a long time ago. After the Great Freeze in the late 19th century, the city of DeLand fell on hard times, and the future of DeLand Academy was in doubt. That is, until a Philadelphia philanthropist put his hat down on the town and the school.
Stetson University was founded in 1883, and it was originally DeLand Academy. It was founded as a prep school for both high school age students and later younger students.
DeLand Academy faced significant financial barriers, so Henry DeLand went in search of additional funding.
He found that he needed financial support. He realized that a prominent hat maker and entrepreneur, John B. Stetson, was buying property in DeLand. He was interested in this as not only his winter home, but as an investment opportunity to buy orange groves. DeLand contacted him, they became friends, and John B. Stetson bought into this idea that the people of DeLand, this fledgling southern community, should have access to higher education, much like the northern students had.
From what I understand, he was quite involved with the university in the early years. He was very close to the university's first president, John Forbes. They had a very close working relationship, and he was very much involved in the early affairs of the university.
Stetson's early involvement with DeLand Academy eventually led the school to change its name to John B. Stetson University in 1889.
The first building at Stetson was DeLand Hall, and it was the university, the school for the first few years, and it housed the classrooms, it housed a little library, a little science lab. The students ate there, and really it was the only place they had. And it is the oldest continuous use building in Florida for the purposes of education.
Elizabeth Hall was built with Stetson's money, and it was named after his wife, Elizabeth. He wanted it to look as if it had come from Philadelphia, basically. So when he consulted with the architect, he wanted something that looked like it had been kind of dropped out of the streets of Philadelphia.
In the early 1900s, Stetson acquired a set of chimes, and they were named the Eloise chimes after the president's wife, Eloise, and they were housed in the cupola of Elizabeth Hall. And after a while, these chimes, which the students would play, began to structurally damage the cupola of this building. So the president at the time, Lincoln Hulley, decided to build a tower just to house these bells, these Eloise chimes.
He also had planned to be interned there, so he was buried there. The base of the tower is actually a crypt where he and his wife Eloise are interred.
The early days of Hulley Tower, there were a lot of stories that went around, and we don't know exactly which ones are true and which ones aren't.
Well, there is a long-standing legend that the Hulley's dog is also buried with them, but we have no proof of that.
But my favorite is the one about students taking cows up and down the stairs of the tower. So I find it hard to imagine that it really happened, but I've heard the story many times, seen it referenced in a few places, so maybe they really did get that cow up there and back down.
Holly Tower was torn down due to structural concerns, but the base remains today as a campus landmark.
Well, perhaps our most famous alumnus is Max Cleland.
Well, when I went to Stetson, I was a pine knot man. There's no question about that. Whether I've turned into something or not is for other people to judge. See, initially I thought I was going to be a teacher, a physics teacher, but I didn't have enough math to get even in the basic physics class. So later I thought I was going to be an English teacher. Well, that kind of died with remedial English. But I realized that teaching wasn't going to be my bag. It was going to be serving.
That call to service led Cleland to join ROTC and to seek opportunity to spend a semester in Washington, D.C.
And it turned my life around. That was the time, the fall of 1963, when President Kennedy was assassinated. And we were invited into the Oval Office to see the Oval Office. I was one of the last people to ever see the Oval Office under President Kennedy. I saw the rocking chair and the desk. 72 hours later, the president was assassinated in Dallas. I came out of Washington with those words of President Kennedy ringing in my ear. Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. I began to wonder if even I could get into politics.
After graduating from Stetson, Cleland went on to earn a master's degree in history from Emory University. Then he enlisted in the Army and headed to Vietnam, where he was wounded, losing both legs and his right arm.
I got blown up with a grenade dropped by a fellow soldier about 5 weeks before I was scheduled to come home. I was lucky to survive that. I spent a year and a half in military at a VA hospital. Came home and wondered what in the world I was going to do. So I said, well, I took a stock of my life. I said, no job, no future, no girlfriend, no money, no car. Now's a great time to run for the state senate. So that's what I did. And believe it or not, won 1970. It was the same year, I was 28. I was youngest member of the elected to the state senate. And a young man by the name of Jimmy Carter had won the race for governor, and Carter got sworn in, and I got sworn in to state government at the same time. Carter went on to become President of the United States, sworn in 1977, appointed me as head of the Veterans Administration. So January 20th, 1977, I was Jimmy Carter's first appointment in his Oval Office. And then, of course, Reagan fired me, and I came home to Georgia and was Secretary of State for 12 years.
Then, all of a sudden, the opportunity to run for U.S. Senate opened up.
And I said, oh, whoa, baby, this is for me. So within a week, I announced for the U.S. Senate. And by the grace of God and our friends, was elected in 1996.
Cleland lost his re-election bid, but was eventually brought back into service.
President Obama appointed me to be Secretary of the American Battle Monuments Commission, which runs all the American cemeteries abroad. I would not have had a chance to do all this had not Stetson helped me lay the groundwork for my life.
Stetson University has many famous alumni, including Florida Governor Doyle Carleton and musician George Winston. But perhaps the most notable is known for his creepy past.
Ted Cassidy, who graduated here in the 50s, and he's better known as Lurch on the series The Addams Family. If you know the character Lurch, you know he was very tall, and so Ted was a basketball player here at Stetson, and by all accounts, as there's actually a number of alums around today who were friends with him, he was a very nice guy, and we have a number of pictures of him around campus with other students, and you can always tell who Ted was because he was towering over everybody else. Stetson's a small school, so everybody pretty much knows everybody, and that was even truer in the past when we were even smaller than we were today. And I think Ted was especially well known, not only because he was a basketball player, but because he was a theater major as well, and he was appearing in plays here at Stetson.
While Cassidy's career may have blossomed at Stetson, many others have performed just down the road at the Athens Theater.
The theater was originally built in 1921 and it opened January 5th of 1922. It was one of the vaudeville theaters on the Keith's circuit. So different traveling troupes would come down and they would stop in Jacksonville, and then they would stop in DeLand and they would perform here, and then they would go on down further south to Miami and to Key West. The theater stayed as a vaudeville theater until vaudeville started to die, and then it moved more into the silent movies. During the Great Depression, it was actually said to be one of the only places in town that was affordable enough to be able to go.
Throughout the early years, the Athens Theater compiled an impressive list of performers.
Sally Rand, the very famous burlesque dancer at the time. We had Mae West, Josephine Baker, we had Al Jolson, Will Rogers, and we even had, supposedly, a very young, aspiring Elvis. After the Great Depression, the theater fell into a little bit of disrepair, and they decided to renovate the theater and make it modern for the time.
By the 1980s, the theater fell into disrepair again and was almost torn down, until funds were raised to save the historic building.
They were able to redo the facade and have the front of the building look like it had when it originally opened in 1922. So now it looks very similar to what it originally looked like in 1922 when it opened, with one slight difference, which is when the theater originally opened, it had 1,000 seats, and now it has 450 seats because we like to adhere to fire codes. It is a haven where you can come and you can be yourself, and you can be as big and loud and exuberant as you possibly want to be, and be in a nice intimate setting and enjoy some really good entertainment. It's not just a building. It's so much more than that. It really is kind of the heart of the town.
The DeLand art scene has always been strong, but there's something about the simple yet beautiful set of wings here that draws people from around the globe.
Being from DeLand and now creating this mural for DeLand has been such a cool feeling. Meeting people downtown, they're like, oh my gosh, you're the one that painted the wings, and every time I'm just like, wow.
I love the fact that this is a very simple little mural. We didn't do anything special. We didn't repaint the doors. It was just a simple gesture of art, and it's just a real joy to see all the people enjoying this very simple interactive mural here in DeLand.
I was working for Dressed Boutique. Social media was a big part of sales for us. We would take photos wearing the clothing from the shop and post them online. When customers weren't in the shop, we'd quick run outside and take some photos in front of the doors and go back in. So this went on for a while. One day, I talked to the owner of Dressed, Cam Amici. I was like, what would you think if I drew some wings and we stood in front of that? She's like, absolutely, go right ahead. And I said, they're just gonna be in chalk. It'll be this afternoon. Believe it or not, in this Florida weather, they are a tiny bit protected. Eventually they did wash away, but there was still a faint ghost-like presence. When I painted the wings permanently, they gained the hashtag DeLand Wings. Over 5,000 publicly shared photos with the hashtag. I put a blast out on Facebook and said, send me your wing pictures. I had this vision of printing a poster with as many photos as I could and standing in front of the wings with the poster. And it worked. Everyone responded. So many people are coming to DeLand to have a photo taken in front of the wings, and then it's driving tourism wonderfully. I've said before, and I really believe this, I think you stand a little taller when you're standing in front of the wings.
You know, I've always said, if you want to jump out of a perfectly good airplane, you must be special, because gravity is the law. But apparently here in DeLand, people have a different idea about fun.
Skydive DeLand, founded in 1982. Basically, it was a bunch of skydivers who wanted a place to skydive.
And it's a major drop zone around here. It's bigger than most other drop zones in the country. And it's a fantastic place to come either learn. A ton of teams come out and train here from all over the world. It's just a great drop zone.
I like to call it the Mecca of skydiving. People travel from all over the world to come to Skydive DeLand.
It was crazy. Like, it was probably the best thing I've ever done in my life. You feel the pressure changing inside your ears, and you look outside and the airport just looks smaller and smaller. And then they open the door, and you feel this huge breeze come in, and you're like, you know, this is it. That's it.
And I was scared to chicken out, but I was like, I'm here, I'm going to do it, I'm gonna be scared, but I'll do it. And then we go down and jump, and that is like the craziest thing ever.
Once you do that final jump, you're gonna like want to do it again, definitely, for sure.
It goes from that like air in your like face and that noise of the air, and just to like smooth and calmness. It was so good.
During World War II, much of Central Florida was focused on aviation. But in DeLand, one of the military's unsung heroes was chugging along.
We got involved in building United States Army tugboats built on Lake Beersford during World War II and slightly thereafter. They built a total of 42 all-steel tugboats. 29 during the war were completed, and of that 29, we know for a fact that 16 of them actually went to Germany. We even found later on that one of the World War II boats ended up in Korea. And 4 of the last run built in 1953 ended up in Vietnam. So our tugboat served 3 wars.
As the tugboats made their way around the world, DeLand remained the perfect place to build.
They wanted to choose a site that was on the St. Johns River, and DeLand was perfect, and it also had a good workforce. They ended up having about 500 people, welders, plumbers, pipe fitters, working at what we call the Beersford Boat Works during World War II and later. They knew if they built them on Lake Beersford, they could float them up to Jacksonville without the engine being installed. And once it was there, they could install the engine, the tugboat would go down into the water another 2 feet, and then they could turn them over to the U.S. Army from that point, which is exactly what they did.
The tug served in many ways, but the boat's resilience is really what set them apart.
The tugboats could push an amble barge in like they did at Normandy. They could tow stuff up the intercoastal. They could save lives. They mounted machine guns during wartime and shot down airplanes. The tugboats were everything to everybody, and they knew that they had to have them. Okay, let's talk about the west side, the prettier part of the county. Oh gosh, did I have to say that? Yeah, I'm biased. But that would include the American Machinery Corporation that built the tugboats, the war boats as we call them, because they did a lot of good things in World War II. The Babcock Aviation Corporation, Waco gliders. We talked briefly about the DeLand Industrial Defense Pool and the DeLand Naval Air Station, all major components of the West Side effort. And of course, this picture is of our fantastic restored Memorial Hospital and Veterans Museum, which is also showing the Veterans Plaza and Gardens. And just to the right of that gazebo, if you were to go out there today, you will see our new Veterans Memorial Wall that within a couple of weeks is going to have our first 40 tributes installed. So when you get a chance, come out and take a look at that. We're real pleased with the way that's worked out. And I'm going to be really happy to get all those tiles out of my kitchen. Next, please. Lake Beersford today. That's part of the old dock. Next, please. This is the earliest photograph we have of tugboat construction. There they are, down near the water. Early stone photo, May 15, 1942. So within 6 months of the attack on December 7, we were making tugboats here. And the spark plug of this whole thing was a guy by the name of B.D. Olson, who's in the middle of the upper photograph, who was portrayed so eloquently by our very own Tom Roberts in the stage presentation a couple of years ago. I have that on video, and he just did a wonderful job. Of course, I wrote the script, but you know, he did a great job, and it's memorable. But B.D. Olson was incredible. And after World War II, it would continue on with other investors as the Olson Corporation for many, many years. They actually had one military tugboat contract after World War II that turned out very strangely. We don't have time for that today. Moving on. When I talk about a big photograph of people, well, here they are. And yeah, this is a panorama that we put together into 3 components. It was about umpteen feet wide, and we have the original, but we've shot it down. We can put it all on one screen. There is the coveted E Award that the AMC earned. Once again, commendable in how quickly and how well those tugboats were built, even though they were never designed to be watertight or to be used in open ocean conditions. Of course, the Army ignored all of those things and used them precisely in those areas, which is why some people lost their lives. Next, please. Here it is during construction. Some of the boats up there, of course, these buildings are all gone except for one. One small building still exists from World War II. Everything else is gone. On the bottom are some of the tugboats that were actually put into the water, and then they would finish the fitting while they were floating around. They could start working on the next batch after that and keep production going. They would produce 29 all-steel tugboats during World War II. And I think they were working on a final 3. They ended up going to the United Nations. Good production for such a small facility. Next, please. They built them in batches, 6 to 9 tugs at a time. All steel was fantastic. They could bring the steel in on the railroad system, build these things quickly. They could build an all-steel tug in a few days, and it would take weeks, if not months, to build the same thing in wood because it had to be handled differently. It had to be aged properly and treated properly, and building a wood tug was a time-consuming process. Next, please. First two, they're being launched September 7, 1942, 9 months after Pearl Harbor, and we're putting tugboats into the water. Now, they're getting ready to go into the water sideways. I think I have the photograph of that, but just in case that I don't, because they had a fairly deep draft, and these boats never had the engines installed. They were towed out of Lake Beresford into the St. Johns River, all the way up to Jacksonville, where they would install the engines, and they would sink down another 2 feet. At that point, they had a 9-foot draft, but they were in deep water. They were handed over to the Army, and they were great for inter-harbor use. The Army used them for everything. Next, please. Here's one at launch. Sideways. Couldn't put them in nose first like you would expect to see. Nope. 7-foot depth right there. They put it in nose first. They had to dig them out. Next, please. Unique photo. Now, this is moving under its own power, so either somebody went up to Jacksonville and took some images, or it came back down for a special hoorah because all the guys have their best suits on that are on board. Next, please. Great book, Tug of War, $5 on eBay or Amazon. Joe Richards, I met some people that knew him, talked a little bit about what an amazing guy he was. This book details the incredible adventures of this guy and one tugboat, one all-steel tugboat that was built exactly to the same pattern as the ones we built on Lake Beresford. And he got a job as a captain. Fun story. He's interviewing, and the officer says, well, why should we hire you? You don't have a whole lot of experience. And he literally said, is there a line behind me? The answer was no, because everyone knew better. Even getting crew for these top-heavy tugs was a chore, and they had to lie a little bit. Okay, but here was his task. Okay, take this all-steel top-heavy tugboat down to the Panama Canal, get through the Panama Canal, come all the way back up to L.A., and then we want you to come from L.A. We're going to mount some heavy machine guns and ammo boxes on top of your already top-heavy area, and then we're not going to give you a chronometer and send you 2,400 miles to Hawaii. You'll have a radio. The fact that he survived is incredible, and he's the one that historically I look at as to complete verification that these things were so top heavy, they should never, ever have been out in the ocean. Next, please. Now, tugboats, how did they get to Europe? Well, they were picked up by this crane, which was a World War I battleship known as the Kearsarge, and they turned it into a crane ship in New York, and this thing could lift 100 tons. Well, that's kind of what a tugboat weighs. Next photograph. There they are. Look at them. Two little tugboats on the back of a Liberty ship headed for Europe. Okie dokie, good idea. That worked well. And they got about 50 of them over there before somebody had a better idea. Next. There were a batch of 8 tugs, 672 through 677. 2 of them capsized and were lost in the North Atlantic. And the crew were probably cursing the day they ever got on the thing. 676 and 677 actually survived World War II, even though they were in something known as Convoy New York 119. The book is on the left. It's $15 on Amazon. It's an unbelievable tale of survival at sea, which just happens to include 15 small tugboats, including 2 of ours built here on Lake Beresford. Next, please. This chart was in the book, and this is how I verified the numbers. They had a number. And some really, really smart Army officers said, look, we're wasting all that space on the back of those liberty ships we can use for other things. Why don't we tow these small tugboats over to Europe behind a large tug? It worked really well in the summer. Then they tried it at the end of September. 4 small tugs towing 3 to 4 tugs and barges at 6 knots. It would take them a month to get across. It's kind of like, hey, let's go walk to Europe. Next, please. ST474. There's a crew, wonderful photograph of a DeLand boat. I need to finish the story really quick about the convoy. The second time they went out, they managed to get crew for all the tugboats. The weather got worse day by day by day. And the waves got to be 50 feet and then 60 feet. And they're so far out, they can't possibly turn around and go back. They might as well just do their best to get through it. Well, 200-foot tow ropes from barge to tug to whatever, and they were all just being towed except the tug at the front. Well, with wave action, what would happen is the ropes, they would get out of alignment, and whenever they snap back together, it would just pull the tug under. They didn't have time to correct. They lost 1 tug and the crew, about 8 people on each one. They lost a second tug. The waves are not letting up. They lost a third tug. By this time, the tugboat crews that are still alive are somewhat demoralized by all of this. The commander stopped the convoy. He had already made an emergency call to England saying help, and 2 ships came out. The English Coast Guard, whatever their name for that is. And once they got out into the water, they radioed the commander and said, hey, mate, this is just too much. We're going home. And the commander said, Roger, click. So even the British couldn't help. The commander of that convoy made the right call. They had enough fuel to load up the small tugs. From that point on, they would not need refueling. He cut them loose. And the remaining 12 made it. With the help of the USS Mason, a destroyer escort, they had an all-black crew that was assigned to get the 12 in. The waves had started to break their destroyer in half. They came out with welding torches and saved their own ship, and then turned around to shepherd the 12 tugboats into safety. Unbelievable story. Get the book. Next. The most famous of our tugboats, ST374, undoubtedly was at D-Day Normandy off the coast at 7 o'clock when the invasion started. They would not go in until the next day, but they were there off the coast, taking the risks along with everyone else. And then they built the docks off of the coast of Normandy that really are what helped us make that invasion a success. 9,000 men died on D-Day. They died for a reason. When the docks were built, men and materiel just got poured into that area, and this little tugboat helped make it happen. Built right here in DeLand, 6 weeks later, off the coast of Cherbourg, France, it hit a mine. Most of the crew would have been killed. If you were below decks, you weren't coming back up. Too hard to get out. I have a photograph in the museum of one young man that I referenced out. His photograph is there, and he was killed on that sad day on DeLand ST479 Next, please. There it is again. She hit a mine off the coast. Don't know how many were exactly killed. A few would have survived. 16 of these warboats definitely went to Europe of the 29. 3 capsized, but at least 6 still exist in the world. Next. Okay, now I'm in contact with the guy, and I'm still involved with him on Facebook, but I haven't heard a whole lot about his offer. He made an offer a few years ago to put Tiger, ST479, in his will to go to DeLand Historic Trust for us to return it back home, which I'd love to do. But it's in Sweden. So if you happen to have $500,000 and, you know, the tug is free, but getting it here, but I'm thinking it could be a National Geographic special, okay? Old tug comes home from World War II. Wouldn't that be cool? All right, so let me know if you're ready to do this. I'm all for going to Sweden. I like Sweden. I've been there. It's a nice place. Has some really neat social things. Oh, wait, can't be political. Moving on. Next. Help beat the Axis with prophylaxis. Okey-dokey. Okay, you two can do your thing. Don't give ED. All right, moving on. Waco U.S. Army glider production. Next. V.C. Babcock was an amazing man. When I started doing research on this gentleman, he knew Wilbur and Orville Wright. He was the number 5 man to ever fly in America. Came to DeLand, ended up getting a contract. He built some planes like this one above, built in DeLand, 1939. You know, he was building prototypes and doing all kinds of aviation thing. And then he decided to build Waco gliders. Waco had designed these, and they were contracting production out across the country. So with this background, the U.S. Army said, great. Next. So they were standard Waco gliders. They built them in a large tent at the old fairgrounds. Bottom right is a picture out of the West Volusia Historical Society book showing them being towed probably out to the airport. And on the left is a construction photograph. Upper right, a blank tag for the glider, ID tag. Next, please. They did more than just build gliders, and Babcock was instrumental in building the defense pool, where they built Navy parts, Army parts, aircraft parts, anything the military wanted. They would ask DeLand if we wanted to build it. Next, please. Here are the Waco gliders. And being a glider pilot and actually getting into a glider was gutsy. Remember, you're only going to have one attempt at landing. Yeah. Next, please. There were quality control issues. The welds weren't solid. The Army sent down 2 officers to investigate, and they had a fire that broke out, destroyed a bunch of the production out at the fairgrounds. They just seemed to have one problem after the other, and the Army finally canceled the contract. They did not get an E award. And the source that I researched on this in the book that talks about gliders indicated, next slide please, that's oh yeah, and quite a few of them were damaged at the airport. Next please. Yeah, all that damage cost the government $51,000 per glider, when 50 $3,000 would buy a new P-51 Mustang fighter. And if you know aviation stuff, it's hard to compare the two. So you can see why the Army did close it down. Next, please. Give him a whiff of his own BO. Blitzkrieg offensive. Okay. Next. DeLand Industrial Pool. Here's Mrs. Earl LaRoe of Eustis, a grandmother, doing daily shift work in the family's garage. She's making worm gears for Army aircraft. Loose Confederation did all kinds of stuff. Millions of dollars of military items were made during the war. I didn't know anything about this when I started doing this research. Had never heard of it. Not mentioned anywhere. Next, please. County fair buildings were used for all kinds of things, and DeLand Industrial Pool got some of those. They loaded the elephants and sideshows up, and they went on the road a week earlier in 1942. Next, please. Freeing up all those buildings to make stuff. And we did. This is something going to U.S. Army Corps. Next, please. Air Corps. Military project, industrial pool again. They could basically do whatever someone needed. False bottoms for naval destroyers, engine housings, propellers. They did all kinds of stuff. Next, please. Here's an aluminum furnace with a group working in Daytona Beach that were part of the DeLand coalition. Next, please. Aircraft engine repair in DeLand. These guys look like they're having a party and not working, but you see the point. Next, please. Aircraft construction class, welders. Next, please. Casey's Machine Shop, never heard of them, down by the railroad tracks. Was one of the strongest members of this group, producing $3 million worth of war production without a single rejection. Let me say that again slowly, because that's a lot of money for 1941, $3 million of war production. That's amazing. Next, please. These guys are creative, and everyone back then solved their problems. They needed a welder, so they took an Overland chassis, mounted a Dodge motor, attached a Studebaker radiator, and then got a generator set up, and hey, they're ready to go. Improvisation. Next, please. Cars Machine Shop, another group. Next, please. DeLand Naval Air Station. That's a Douglas SBD, that dive bomber. And DeLand Naval Air Station crew, and a Ventura subbuster on the bottom right. Next, please. They became functional about the same time as Daytona did, December 42. Upper right, PBY Catalina, the big old boat that you see quite often in the Pacific arena. Well, we had one on Lake George, Lake Crescent, to pick up downed aviators. Officers' quarters, bottom right. We had PT boats and smaller boats and all kinds of stuff on these lakes to save the people that went in there. Next, please. The Douglas Aircraft Corporation Dauntless, which SBD is Scout Bomber Douglas, in case you wondered. This is the one that won the battle at Midway. We sent in our torpedo, our old and slow, outclassed torpedo bombers in first. The Japanese took all of them out except maybe one or two. But while they were dealing with that, our dive bombers came over the top of their aircraft carriers and took out a total, before the event was over, of 4 aircraft carriers. And that was a major blow to Japan at the time. Winning the battle Midway had a certain amount of luck to it. I want to see the new a version. I have not seen the new version of Midway yet. But it was a turning point in the war, and anyone that has studied it and looked at it said, you know, there was a whole lot of luck involved here. And there was, and many, many reasons. Next, please. But those are what we had in DeLand. Now, this appeared collage, and I'm going to apologize because they've got black kids on the upper left eating watermelon. World War II stereotypes. But there's a large number of photographs. We had Navy on the bottom left on a pier. There's one of the rescue boats, and a smaller one on the right-hand side. I believe that one was in DeLeon Springs. These military folks were just everywhere. Next, please. DeLand Naval Air Station built all kinds of buildings. It ended up being repurposed. Florida Military School was out there. Popel's Furniture was out there. There were all kinds of buildings. And I mentioned Popel because he was an incredible man in World War II and a Marine who ended up coming here. And the bottom right, that is a fire truck from the DeLand Naval Air Station that was donated to the city of DeLand that we see in our parades every year. Next, please. All right, I am 5 minutes over, but I did pretty good, 8:05, and now these are all commercials at the end. Come visit DeLand Naval Air Station Museum, see the Tomcat, or come visit the DeLand Memorial Hospital and Veterans Museum, and especially our Wall of Honor outside, which within a couple of weeks is going to be looking pretty good. Hi, I'm Dan Friend, and yes, this is all my fault. DeLand's warboat, U.S. Army ST479 Tiger, is coming home after 78 years. It's been in Europe, 40 years in Holland in the commercial trade, the rest of the time in Sweden, in the last 20 years, sitting on a canal in Stockholm. But I made contact with the owners almost 10 years ago. And when we found out how original this boat was, we asked them to put it in their will, which they did. And by doing so, they made a commitment that unfortunately for them had to be exercised early. John and Margaretta Higgins are fairly well off, and they chose to donate their boat to the city of DeLand.
Real estate. He's been an educator, but it's in retirement that Dan Friend, president of the nonprofit DeLand Historic Trust Incorporated, is making history. West 2's Claire Metz reports Friend is closing in on his dream to bring a World War II tugboat made in DeLand back to DeLand.
This is the only U.S. Army ST tugboat to ever come back to America.
And this is it, the ST479, the Tiger, 86 feet long, 23 feet wide, 140 tons of steel. There were 550 STs, small tugs, sent into World War II, 29 of them made in DeLand's Lake Beersford area, including the Tiger. Dan Friend believes it was built in time to be used in Normandy.
90% probability they used every one they could get over there that was built in time. They had to have them to build on the docks off of the French coast, to recover bodies. I mean, there were so many things.
Friend's passion for all things military, he's also the city's military curator, led him to discover the Tiger in private ownership in Sweden. The owners offered it to Dan, but he had to raise $200,000 to cargo the Tiger across the Atlantic.
I found an angel, a local patriotic angel, who said, I will give you $200,000 to bring the boat home to Jacksonville.
The Tiger's now berthed in Green Cove Springs. Dan and others working to clean it up and get the tug to DeLand under its own power, down the St. Johns, across Lake George. Dan says the tug won't be just the pride of the city and county, it's a national treasure. The lone tug to return from battle, Dan Friend, its warrior.
I'm known to be tenacious about things, and I just kept plugging along and talking to people, and it happened.
Though his angel, the anonymous donor, did the lion's share, getting that tug back to the States, Dan Friend says he's now working through his nonprofit, the DeLand Historic Trust, Inc., to finish the job, get the tug back to DeLand and into a static monument. In DeLand, Volusia County, Claire Metz, West 2 News.
Well, a piece of history making its return. A World War II era tugboat created in DeLand will soon be back in Volusia County. Quite the story here. The boat was just brought back to the U.S. from Europe.
The project more than a year in the making. News 6's Molly Reed shows us how leaders are preparing this piece of the past for its future.
DeLand City Commission started their conversations this morning about where the tugboat could go now that it's back in the U.S. Right now, their hope is to try to put it in a park near the river, but first it's going to be a matter of getting it to DeLand.
It's a completely unknown part of American World War II history. The tug that's coming back is the only one to ever return home out of the 550 U.S. Army World War II ST tugboats.
And its name is the ST Tiger, one of 29 of those tugboats built in a factory on Lake Beersford in DeLand. Dan Friend, president of the DeLand Historic Trust, says it was likely used in Normandy.
To build on the docks off of the French coast, to recover bodies. I mean, there were so many things. The tugs were essential.
Friend started research on the tugboats decades ago, even creating a website about them. About a year ago, he got a call from a couple in Sweden. They had the Tiger and would give it to him, but he had to pay for transport. The group started raising money. Then what he calls an anonymous angel came along,
who said, I will give you $200,000 to bring the boat home to Jacksonville. And after that, you're on your own.
On July 10th, it was brought back to the U.S. Right now, it's being held outside of Jacksonville. Friend and the other volunteers working on it will know next week if it can come down by itself.
We're going to bring her home on her own power. We're 90% certain. It's a diesel. And those old diesels, after 20 years, they crank right up.
How soon it gets to DeLand also depends on funding. The DeLand Historic Trust is fundraising again for paint, transportation, and monument costs. But Friend says one way or another, the Tiger is coming home.
It goes past the city of DeLand. This is the only U.S. Army ST tugboat to ever come back to America, to the place where it was built. The only one. That's extraordinary.
In DeLand, Volusia County, I'm Molly Reed getting results, News 6.
Earlier this month, we told you about the efforts to bring a piece of history back to its Central Florida roots. Tugboats created locally, then sent across the Atlantic to help fight World War II.
What's even more surprising, they were built inland, just off the St. Johns River near DeLand. Tonight, a look at one man's quest to bring one home.
The port at Green Cove Springs in Clay County is a resting stop for ships from far and wide, many with stories of better times, but none with the history.
It's older than anything here, for sure.
Of this latest arrival.
You know, there's nothing here that compare to a boat that was in Europe and in the war.
Moored at the end of Pier 1 is the tugboat known as Tiger.
And we're on ST479 Tiger, a U.S. Army small harbor tug. Built during World War II.
And thanks to Dan Friend, ST479 Tiger,
it is amazing,
is coming home.
And they started up within 6 months of Pearl Harbor. They were building tugboats on Lake Beresford and DeLand.
A total of 29 tugboats were built for the Army on the shores of Lake Beresford. Small Tug 479 was one of them.
And more than likely, it was built in time to serve in Normandy, to help the invasion effort, to build the Mulberry docks off of the coast of Omaha Beach that were so vital, so crucial to our victory at the Normandy invasion.
And that's what makes this tug so special.
This is absolutely original.
To Dan Friend.
From World War II.
And it's why he traveled across the globe to bring it back.
We refer to this as a quest to return ST479.
And it has been quite a journey. Friend tracked the boat down to a canal in Sweden, where it had been for more than 20 years.
It was a working boat, and that's how she survived. To me, and I like old things, it's like finding a 200-year-old flintlock musket that's never been messed with. The wood's funky and it's rusty, but it's real, it's original.
Real, original, and in need of repair. But Friend is up for the challenge.
I mean, we've got a long way to go.
After a successful fundraising effort, last month, ST479 made it back to the port of Jacksonville. Its story and Dan's now one in the same.
How do people find something that they thoroughly enjoy doing and feel like it's worth doing? I feel like this is worth doing.
I think he likes a project. Pretty cool. Friend says the plan is to first paint the boat and eventually display it as a part of a memorial in West Volusia County.
Results.
Earlier this month, we told you about the efforts to bring a piece of history back to Central Florida.
And these tugboats were created locally and sent across the Atlantic to help fight World War II.
What's even more surprising, they were built inland just off the St. Johns River near DeLand. Matt Austin has the story of one man's quest to bring one home.
The port at Green Cove Springs in Clay County is a resting stop for ships from far and wide, many with stories of better times, but none with the history.
It's older than anything here, for sure.
Of this latest arrival.
You know, there's nothing here that compare to a boat that was in Europe and in the war.
Moored at the end of Pier 1 is the tugboat known as Tiger.
We're on ST479 Tiger, a U.S. Army small harbor tug. Built during World War II.
And thanks to Dan Friend, ST479 Tiger,
it is amazing,
is coming home.
And they started up within 6 months of Pearl Harbor. They were building tugboats on Lake Beresford and DeLand.
The country was united in the war effort, and an Orlando company that normally made farm equipment was contracted to build tugboats. A total of 29 were built for the Army on the shores of Lake Beresford. Small Tug 479 was one of them.
And more than likely, It was built in time to serve in Normandy, to help the invasion effort, to build the mulberry docks off of the coast of Omaha Beach that were so vital, so crucial to our victory at the Normandy invasion.
And that's what makes this tug so special.
This is absolutely original.
To Dan Friend.
From World War II.
And it's why he traveled across the globe to bring it back.
We refer to this as a quest to return ST479.
And it has been quite a journey. Friend tracked the boat down to a canal in Sweden, where it had been for more than 20 years.
It was a working boat. And that's how she survived. To me, and I like old things, it's like finding a 200-year-old flintlock musket that's never been messed with. The wood's funky and it's rusty, but it's real, it's original.
Real, original, and in need of repair. But Friend is up for the challenge.
I mean, we've got a long way to go.
In fact, this retired history teacher is now an expert in World War II tugboats.
Here is the chain steering.
But it wasn't always that way.
I have to be honest, I was a landlubber. I'm learning everything I can about these tugboats, and I know a lot more than most people do, but I'm still a landlubber asking questions about how does that work?
After a successful fundraising effort, last month, ST479 made it back to the port of Jacksonville.
I feel like this is worth doing.
Its story and Dan's, now one in the same.
It will certainly end up being my legacy, one way or the other. If it sinks out in the river tomorrow, it'll still be my legacy.
Matt Austin, Getting Results, News 6.
Friend says the plan is to first paint the boat and eventually display it as part of a memorial in West Volusia County. That was just a beautifully done story. Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's amazing that they were able to find it, and
Yes.
even the thought of trying to get it back here is amazing.
Yes, it is.
So hopefully we can get it all sorted out, and maybe a piece of history will always stay in Volusia County.
He's going to do it. I feel he can.
Well, history is coming full circle. A World War II era tugboat created here in Central Florida will soon be brought home.
The ST Tiger was supposed to be back in DeLand by November, but the hurricanes postponed the trip. News 6's Molly Reed has an update on the work it's taking to get the boat back here and what those behind the project hope to see come from it.
After some delays, the organization behind getting the Tiger back here to DeLand says it will officially be back on January 15th. But they say they also need to raise some more money and collect donations to get it set up once it is here.
The boat's in Astor, Florida, after coming 4,900 miles from Stockholm, Sweden.
And soon, Dan Friend with the DeLand Historic Trust says the ST Tiger will make its final leg of the journey home.
It's like a completely unknown chapter of World War II history, sailing home after 78 years.
The Tiger was one of 29 of these tugboats built in a factory on Lake Beersford in DeLand for World War II.
They made over 550 U.S. Army World War II ST tugboats for harbor use all around the world in World War II.
Friend started research on the tugboats decades ago, even creating a website about them. In early 2021, he got a call from a couple in Sweden. They had the Tiger and wanted to know if he wanted it.
I found 6 boats around the world. 5 of them had been completely rebuilt and butchered, and they were just basically the hulls. This one was intact.
Friend and the Historic Trust collected almost $300,000 in donations to bring the Tiger back to the U.S. In July of this year, it traveled back to America from Sweden. Friend hoped it would be back in DeLand in November, but the hurricanes pushed that back.
And we found a good location for it right across from Edstone Park, where the water's deep enough and out of the way enough for us to leave her there for a little while.
Friend says they're still talking with city leaders in different parts of Volusia County to find a permanent spot for it. But he says now that they've cleaned her up, they're going to need to raise even more money to turn her into the memorial.
Extreme expenses involved. I think we have to raise at least another $200,000 to $300,000.
Now, if you are interested in donating, I'm putting all that information up on our website, clickorlando.com. Just look for this story. In DeLand, Volusia County, I'm Molly Reed, Getting Results, News 6.
This World War II tugboat will soon be on display in Volusia County following a massive effort to get it home.
The boat's in Astor, Florida, after coming 4,900 miles from Stockholm, Sweden.
Dan Friend, a retired teacher and history buff, says says the boat was built in West Volusia County in 1944. It was then given to the U.S. Army and believed to be used in the D-Day invasion of Normandy. The Army used the tugboats to move loads all over the world. Friend says having one back in DeLand would be a rare sight.
None of them ever came home back to where they were built. It's like a completely unknown chapter of World War II history, sailing home after 78 years.
Friend led a major fundraising effort to get the tugboat from Sweden to Jacksonville. It's now in Astor, and the goal is to get it to DeLand on January 15th. The next step is to find a permanent site.
We found a good location for it right across from Edstone Park, where the water's deep enough and out of the way enough for us to leave her there for a little while.
And Friend has bigger plans for the final site, hoping to make it a place rich in history for West Volusia.
We do have interesting plans developing for more than one monument to be built in the same location with wherever Tiger ends up going.
In DeLand, Vicky Carr, Fox 35
World War
News.
II era tugboat built in DeLand is due back in DeLand later this month.
And it hasn't been easy getting the 150-ton tugboat from Europe to Florida.
Yeah.
But as West Shoes Claire Metz tells us, the president of the DeLand Historic Trust is finally seeing this dream come to reality.
It's our holy grail. It is that unique to the history of West Volusia County.
This is the precious cargo Dan Friend is talking about, the ST479, the Tiger, one of only 550 STs and small tugs sent into World War II. 29 of them were made in DeLand's Lake Beresford area, and the Tiger is the only one to come home. Friend, who is president of DeLand Historic Trust, Inc., says the Tiger and other tugs were vital during the Normandy invasion.
They were a key part of the package. We couldn't have done it without them. And then later on, they assisted all the way up through the Battle of the Bulge and to victory.
Friend, who was also DeLand's military curator, learned the Tiger was in private ownership in Sweden. The owners offered it to Friend for free, and someone he calls an angel donated $200,000 to return the tug to Florida. The Tiger is now in Astor, freighted 4,900 miles, and on January 15th will return to DeLand under its own power. Friend has scouted a temporary landing spot.
Right across from Edstone Park is perfect for us. Deep water, nothing it can hit. We can run ropes to the trees.
Ideally, Dan Friend, the Historic Trust, want the Tiger as a permanent static display along the St. Johns River somewhere here in West Volusia. But they're willing to work with anyone county-wide who has that same dream of a memorial for the tug. That means raising more money once the tug is home. But Dan Friend and other supporters have come this far and believe the entire community will rally to help create this enduring legacy. In DeLand, Volusia County, Claire Metz, West 2 News.
It's just incredible. There will be a celebration at Edstone Park beginning around noon on January 15th. That's when the tug arrives. The couple who owned it in Sweden and donated it are flying over to be part of this moment.
During World War II, much of Central Florida was focused on aviation. But in DeLand, one of the military's unsung heroes was chugging along.
We got involved in building United States Army tugboats built on Lake Beresford during World War II and slightly thereafter. They built a total of 42 all-steel tugboats. 29 during the war were completed, and of that 29, we know for a fact that 16 of them actually went to Germany. We even found later on that one of the World War II boats ended up in Korea. And 4 of the last run built in 1953 ended up in Vietnam. So our tugboat served 3 wars.
As the tugboats made their way around the world, DeLand remained the perfect place to build.
They wanted to choose a site that was on the St. Johns River, and DeLand was perfect, and it also had a good workforce. They ended up having about 500 people, welders, plumbers, pipe fitters, working at what we call the Beresford Boat Works during World War II and later. They knew if they built them on Lake Beresford, they could float them up to Jacksonville without the engine being installed. And once it was there, they could install the engine, the tugboat would go down into the water another 2 feet, and then they could turn them over to the U.S. Army from that point, which is exactly what they did.
The tug served in many ways, but the boat's resilience is really what set them apart.
The tugboats could push an ammo barge in like they did at Normandy. They could tow stuff up to intercoastal. They could save lives. They mounted machine guns during wartime and shot down airplanes. The tugboats were everything to everybody, and they knew that they had to have them.
This World War II tugboat will soon be on display in Volusia County following a massive effort to get it home.
The boat's in Astor, Florida, after coming 4,900 miles from Stockholm, Sweden.
Dan Friend, a retired teacher and history buff, says the boat was built in West Volusia County in 1944. It was then given to the U.S. Army and believed to be used in the D-Day invasion of Normandy. The Army used the tugboats to move loads all over the world. Friend says having one back in DeLand would be a rare sight.
None of them ever came home back to where they were built. It's like a completely unknown chapter of World War II history, sailing home after 78 years.
Friend led a major fundraising effort to get the tugboat from Sweden to Jacksonville. It's now in Astor, and the goal is to get it to DeLand on January 15th. The next step is to find a permanent site.
We found a good location for it right across from Edstone Park, where the water's deep enough and out of the way enough for us to leave her there for a little while.
And Friend has bigger plans for the final site, hoping to make it a place rich in history for West Volusia.
We do have interesting plans developing for more than one monument to be built in the same location with wherever Tiger ends up going.
In DeLand, Vicki Carr, Fox 35 News.